Welcome to the show. Thanks for joining another week. Have a great show planned for you later on. I'll have Joe Lovell with me, who is the race director for the Ogden Half Marathon Classic. We'll be talking all about that. It'll be here before we know it. And certainly springtime is here, finally starting to feel like some spring weather, and that means Memorial Day weekend will be just around the corner, and that's, of course, when the big race happens. We'll hear all about those events, but let's first start off with some of our usual features, and it's talking about summer since it'll be here before we know it. And you know, my firm has enjoyed a sponsorship the last couple of years with KeyBank Pavilion up in Burgettstown, Pennsylvania, that has a lot of concerts, and we're doing that again this year. And they actually have a concert series called the Bordas and Bordas Concert Series. And I was just looking at the lineup for this year, really great lineup. And some of the highlights, you know, in the month of June, Luke Bryan will be there, Ozzy Osbourne, the Zac Brown Band. Then heading into July, Shinedown, Thomas Rhett, Hootie and the Blowfish, and Dierks Bentley. August, Florida Georgia Line, Train and the Goo Goo Dolls will be there together. And then really one I think a lot of people will enjoy because some acts that you don't really see in this area too much, Nelly, TLC, and Flo Rida all together. So maybe a little bit of a departure from some of the normal country concerts that you see at KeyBank Pavilion. Then heading back toward country in the month of September with Jason Aldean. So, you know, then there are other acts as well, and you can get on their webpage and check it out. But I really thought that it was an impressive lineup, especially with some of the country artists that are coming in this summer. So I think that'll be a great time. Of course, there are pavilion seats and also lawn seats available on their website. And I'm hoping maybe I can make it up for at least a show and check things out, because always a good time to be up there. Give a legal tip here this week as well, and that is don't talk to someone who is accusing you of committing a crime without speaking to a lawyer, whether that's a police officer or a layperson, because it can be used against you. And a lot of people may think, well, look, you know, I've heard like, okay, you know, you have a right to remain silent, and that pertains with respect to the government, you know, law enforcement, prosecutors, things like that. But it is also a very good idea not to speak to someone who is personally accusing you of a crime or a business that's accusing you of a crime without speaking to a lawyer, because the statements that you make can be used against you in court. And people may not realize that. So better just to kind of keep quiet and say, hey, let me get back to you on this, and then talk to a lawyer, see what your rights are, maybe have them speak to the person or the business, whoever it may be, so you don't make any type of statements that can later be used to incriminate you or to be held against you in some way. The statements that the lawyer makes, you know, on your behalf, you know, typically, there are some exceptions, but can't typically be used against you. So better to talk to a lawyer in that regard and see what you can do. And there's some really good, you know, criminal lawyers here in the Ohio Valley, and good to talk to one of them if you have that type of situation. Because we're going to be talking later on about the Ogden Half Marathon and the weekend that'll be surrounding that, which is now called the Ogden Newspaper's Wellness Weekend. I want to talk a little bit about a quote that pertains to that. I always like to give a quote here on the show, and this one is actually something from the World Health Organization, not from a person like I might normally give, but this is actually a statement that's been put out by the World Health Organization, who has said, "Health is a state of complete physical, mental, and social well-being, and not merely the absence of disease or infirmity." I thought that was particularly interesting because we always think of health as being kind of not sick, you know, kind of the opposite of sick. But it's really not. You know, and I think that the World Health Organization, recognizing that it's not just physical but also mental and social well-being are all important, is something that's noteworthy, because oftentimes we just think of our physical health, but there's so much attention and so much that's been said about mental health, you know, in the more recent years, and how important that is, and how as society for so long we kind of ignored mental health or didn't really talk about people's mental health. And then I think also social well-being, the fact that the World Health Organization mentions that as well, is important, because I think more than ever, you know, with social media and the other ways that we engage in a social manner, that social well-being can be just as important to our health as anything else these days. You can see how people can be driven down by things that are said on social media and other forms of social engagement, and how that can be just as detrimental to them as an illness or some other form of ailment. So I think this is particularly noteworthy, and people need to pay attention to all three, you know, physical, mental, and social well-being, in order to really think about their health and to be proactive with it, not just wait until something happens, but you know, recognize signs of other people in your life that maybe if they're going down a path that's not good in one of those areas, to try to, you know, encourage them to get some help, because any one of those areas could really lead to a downfall. We need to take a break. When I come back, we'll be talking all about the Ogden Wellness Weekend. Stay with us here on the Jamie Bordas Show.
When reviewing your oil and gas offers or royalty check statements, do you wonder, am I being offered a fair amount? Do I feel comfortable reading the statement? Do I have peace of mind? If you answered no to these questions, you need Bordas Mineral Management. Our passion is helping mineral owners protect and expand their mineral wealth. Our examiners tell you whether you're being treated fairly and getting paid what is rightfully yours. Bordas Mineral Management. Be protected. Have peace of mind.
Recommended by the highest authorities. Danoon Lumber.
Looks like a bad one's coming. Yeah. Right?
Welcome back to the show. This is my favorite time each week when I have a guest with me, and this week's no different. My guest this week is Joe Lovell, who is the race director for the Ogden Half Marathon Classic that's been happening now here in the city of Wheeling for many, many years, but some new stuff this year. So we'll hear all about it. And Joe, thanks for being here on the show.
Thank you for having me.
You know, let's first talk about the new, because I think people really want to hear about that. And that's, it's no longer just the Saturday. Now there's a Sunday component to the weekend.
Yes, we're adding the Tough as Nails Urban Challenge, which is through the city streets of Wheeling with different obstacles throughout the course, 6-mile course, roughly 20 obstacles. We're trying to nail them all down right now as far as putting the whole thing together. But it's starting out the same start as the normal race start, going through town, and then different obstacles going up through the intermodal, going down to the flood wall, cargo nets, the different aspects of going all the way to South Wheeling, carrying buckets of nails, going through our plant, the tunnel, down by our printing plant, carrying that, like I said, the bucket of nails, which is the railroad spikes. They have to do. That's one of the challenges.
That's cool.
That's where the kind of Tough as Nails come through. So that's kind of like our signature thing. It's just a matter of we didn't want to treat it as one of the, I guess, traditional mudders. So our team come up with. I'm working with Seven Springs as far as some of their obstacles because they have the big mud on the mountain, and some of their obstacles we're using also. Putting the whole thing together was a challenge, trying to figure out how the race course could go. As far as 6 miles goes, that's a lot of running. There's a place, once you hit East Wheeling, there's like 400 steps you have to run up,
Wow.
Walk up. So. And then it circles and it ends up in the same area of where the finish line is for the Ogden race. That's where it finishes up. But before you get there, we're going to have cannons of water shooting on people from. We're using the cannons that they use at Seven Springs when they spray the mountain for snow, to make their snow. We're using some of those. We have barrels that are going to spin at the end where they have to climb over. So it's going to be very challenging.
How in the world did this idea even come to be? I mean, that, hey, we're going to do this big obstacle thing now. I mean, the race itself on Saturday, long-standing tradition in Wheeling, but now to say, all right, we're going to do this Sunday thing, and it's going to be all these obstacles, water shooting at people and going up all these steps and carrying nails. I mean, how did this even come to be?
It started probably a year ago. The health plan got involved, and they discussed it with our team of people at the newspaper and started to put the thing together as thinking, how can we do this? We didn't want to do, like I said, the traditional mudder type thing where you're climbing through mud and all that stuff. We wanted something different. And we wanted to tie the whole the Ogden newspaper's Wellness Weekend together, and how can we do this? And they come up with the idea of doing this urban challenge through the city. And I don't know how many there are around the country, but this was pretty much a pretty rare thing.
I was wondering that because, I mean, you hear about the Tough Mudders that people go and compete in, like you mentioned up at Seven Springs, there's one, and you see the things on Facebook and other forms of social media where people are going through the mud and crawling under the things and do all that stuff. But to go through the city is kind of a different concept, and I'm wondering, how many of these are around the country and whether this is something that'll kind of catch on other places.
It could be a start for something because of just all it's involved, because of we're climbing over cars, or we possibly even have a old fire truck that the city has that actually Panhandle Cleaning called and said, we have a fire truck, and can you use it? And we're trying to incorporate that into our mix, which is I believe it's a 86 or 89 fire truck. So we said, how can we use this? And we figured, well, let's try it in place, and they could climb over it, and trying to figure how we can maybe add some more to it, and as one of the things. So it's like, how can we make it challenging? What can we do? I know 6 miles already is a challenge, but when you start adding a cargo net or going through a nets and fish and fishing line or nets and stuff like that, and then you add the other things to it. And then we have our printing plant, which is they're going to climb over rolls of paper. They're going to dive into a dumpster. It's going to be a clean new dumpster, but there'll be a dumpster dive where they in and out of it. And so you add these little aspects of all things all over through Wheeling, and you come up with an urban challenge.
So if all right, to go 6 miles alone, I'm in a car. I'm not going.
Well, you couldn't go through a car on this because of the trail it takes.
Sure, so. But let's say I want to watch this because I'm not in any type of shape to participate in some place. But let's say I want to watch. I mean, where's a good spot to watch? Because you can't see everything. Where's a good place to watch? You think?
Anywhere along the course, but basically, watch people glow up the cargo net, carrying the buckets and nails, the tunnel, which it's a tunnel by the plant, which is, I don't know how far, but we're only going halfway in and circling and coming back out. And it's very dark. Yeah. So we're figuring out how we can incorporate some lights inside of it, or what we can do to entice a little bit more interesting. So they'll run in and come out by the plant, and then so it could be interesting to see that.
Yeah, so I mean, there's different places you could watch it depending upon which of the kind of challenges you think might be most interesting.
They say the best one would be the finish line, watching them climb over these barrels after they just run, obviously 6 miles, climbing over the barrels that will be spinning.
Yeah.
Going through the cannons of water, and I guess from my understanding, those things are just hoses. They spray a mist, and it's foggy, and it's one of those things where I'm not saying it's going to be cold enough that day for anything to happen, but if it happened to be a little chill in the air, you might see some little ice crystals that might come out of it because that's what it's based for.
Sure.
But I don't think it's going to be that cold Memorial Day. We're hoping not. So again, that's where all this, and they said that's the best place at the end of the race to see all this, and that's where obviously, because it's not one of those things where you can go and follow all the way along the course because of just what it is.
Yeah.
But some of the key components would be those type of things. And of course, they're going to run up through the intermodal, and then we're going to have we're going to have, they're going to be able to pull tires on the top floor. And they'll be like big truck tires, really ones, so they have to pull those. So you're starting out already, your first obstacle, and then you have to run down after you're done down the steps.
Yeah.
So right there after the first mile, you're pretty exhausted already.
Pretty cool. We need to take a break. When we come back, we'll continue talking about the Ogden Wellness Weekend, including some of the traditional events that are associated with it. Stay with us here on the Jamie Bordas Show.
You earned it. Let us help you save it. Belmont Savings Bank. Focused on your future.
Hi, I'm Mitch Vingle with Wheelhouse Creative, but you may remember me from my days covering the Mountaineers. Every Thursday evening at 7 o'clock, I'll be hosting Off the Record, a series of sports shows featuring the very best personalities. Don't forget, Thursday is Burger Night at Generations. Check out their delicious hamburgers and their famous pierogies. And remember, it's all off the record.
Welcome back to the show. Been speaking with Joe Lovell, who is the race director for the Ogden Half Marathon Classic, and we're talking about some of the new portion of the weekend, the Tough as Nails Urban Challenge. But let's talk about Saturday, the traditional event that people look forward to every Saturday of Memorial Day weekend here in the city of Wheeling. Started off years and years ago. Of course, some people remember it as the Elby's race, back when Elby's was a sponsor. Of course, then the Ogden newspapers took over once Elby's kind of went away. So now Ogden newspapers have been doing this for many years, and I think one of the great components is that money goes to charity as a result of the race proceeds, and that's been a kind of a tradition now here, and another worthwhile cause this year.
Yes, we're donating this year to the Gold Family Memorial. They're trying to put a monument at the waterfront. So we chose them to put the monument up. I don't know the exact location, but it'll be down at the waterfront somewhere. And the monument is something that they're trying to put one monument in each state for the Gold family. And that's what the whole thing comes down to. So that's what we chose to our charity this year. This is our 43rd year, if you add Elby's and you add the newspapers together. So it's been a long-standing tradition for that many years. And like I said, we have the half marathon. We start out the walk, and some of the times is 7:30, 8 o'clock for the run, and then we do the 5K starting at 8:15. The walk is 8:20. The fun run we do for 8:20, and then we do the tiny tot, which is always a fun event for the kids, and that's roughly starts at 10:30.
Yeah, that tiny tot trot, that's kind of fun. That the little kids just run kind of straight in a straight line, and they all
about 100 yards.
They get a little number always and everything, and get to run across the finish line. It seems like they really enjoy that.
Yes, it's a fun event. So, like I said, everything else that's for traditional stuff we do, and of course we added the new this year to both days. We added entertainment. We had a beer garden. We're calling it recovery, food trucks. And like I said, entertainment. And we're trying to make it a fun event to come down to the waterfront, all outside of West Banco Arena, right there.
Is there any admission charge for that, for the beer
No.
garden?
The beer garden will be beer tickets as normally. The food trucks will be available just like you say you go to the Italian Festival and you buy whatever you want to, so that'll be available. And then the entertainment is that's free. Of course, we had the bands, and Saturday it goes from 10:30 or 10 o'clock when the DJ starts, and it'll go to 4 o'clock, and we have different things. And we're saying if you don't come down and run the race, or you don't come down and walk, come down and watch the activities and enjoy the entertainment and the other stuff that we have to offer. So we're not saying you have to be involved with either of the race, but if you come down, just come down and enjoy the weekend with us, either Saturday or Sunday. Sunday starts at 12. The Tough as Nails goes out. We're doing heats of 200 apiece. So there'll be 200 to 215 go out at a time. It's not a timed event. And then they can finish the course as whatever it takes.
Oh, it was interesting that you're also promoting one of the events that isn't really yours, which is the Heritage Trail Bicycle Tour that starts at 8 a.m. on Sunday morning, which is a nice component of the weekend as well.
I believe they have 3 different races or a distance they go. And we tied in with them. We worked with them because when we were done on Saturday, we pretty much left our tents and stuff, and they took advantage of using it on Sunday morning. So now we worked with them, and they were real receptive, and then we add them to everything else that we're doing. So it's part of the whole weekend. The bike race will be going in the morning, and then ours starts at 12 o'clock. And then this year, with the passing of Mr. Scatterday, who was our race director, we added a Scatterday Challenge, which is doing all 3 events.
Oh, wow.
Doing the race, the bike, and also doing the Tough as Nails.
Scat would like that.
Yes.
I know he'll be looking down and smiling, and I'm sure that his family will enjoy that as well, because this race is something he enjoys. He was on this show. I had him on here a couple years ago, and he was passionate about it. He enjoyed it.
It was. I mean, it was. You could always see his red car going through town with his race director sign on the side of it, and everybody said that I'd inherit that sign to put on my car, and I went, no, that's his sign. And he had that, and that's what, because he took it as that was one of his things. He was real passionate about that. He went everywhere, and that's all he talked about.
I bet there'll be some people that try to do, I mean, that's tough. They talk about doing a half marathon on Saturday, then doing the bike on Sunday morning, then doing this tough as nails 6 miles through all these obstacles on Sunday afternoon. I mean, that is a challenge. So I bet there'll be some people doing it, though.
We hope so. I mean, that's, like I said, that's why we put that out there, and in his memories, so it could live on to keep his name going. And it was something that we thought would really a neat thing to do. And not to interrupt you, but just to add to the Sunday, our event goes on to 6 o'clock, and Saturdays at 4 o'clock. So, like I said, if you don't come down and participate in the events, come down for the fun, entertainment, and the food trucks and stuff we have right on Water Street. So
people can still sign up online and register for the events, correct?
yeah, it's OgdenWellnessWeekend.com.
All right.
And you click on there. And then you could actually take you through all the sites and be able to register for any of them. And I will say one thing, we kicked it off this past Sunday with the article in the paper about our corporate challenge, which is a corporate challenge is open to any business that would like to participate. We go by numbers, strictly numbers, not a timed event. Last year, the health plan won. We gave them a trophy, if you actually see it in the paper. This year, we added a second category of 50 and under. So if your business is smaller, you can participate. And the winner, it's more of a bragging right that you get the trophy and keep it for a year, and then come back and challenge it again the following year. So
pretty cool. Well, Joe, I appreciate you being here. Good luck with the weekend. It sounds like a lot of fun for everybody, and hope that it all goes well.
Thank you.
We need to take a break. When we come back, I'll be talking sports. Stay with us here on the Jamie Bordas Show.
Sometimes bad things happen to good people. At Bordas & Bordas, when we see this, we do something about it. We can't prevent bad things from happening, but we can get justice when they do.
Bordas & Bordas, fighting for justice.
We're Panhandle Cleaning and Restoration, and we're gonna save you. We've got it down to a science, an absolute state of art. We do it all, restoration, cleaning, and reconstruction. When disaster strikes, just pick up the phone. We're Panhandle Cleaning and Restoration, and we're gonna save you.
Welcome back to the show. It's time to talk sports, and we'll start in the city of Pittsburgh with the Pittsburgh Steelers making more off-season moves here, this time releasing safety Morgan Burnett. Not much of a surprise, really. Signed him last year, and kind of a disappointment, a lot of injuries, and really I think the big thing was that the Steelers' first-round draft pick last year, safety Terrell Edmonds out of Virginia Tech, really had a good season. He grabbed a hold of that safety position, particularly with Burnett, as I said, struggling with injuries. So he'll no longer be a part of the team, but wouldn't be surprised to see the Steelers maybe looking to pick up another safety in the draft this year, add some depth there. But Morgan Burnett will no longer be a part of the team. Sticking in the city of Pittsburgh, baseball is underway, and the Pirates. Little bit of concern, as maybe people thought it would be in the preseason. Middle relief looks to be an issue. The home opener this week, the Pirates get out to a 4-0 lead. A great pitching performance by Chris Archer, and then the middle bullpen just kind of blows it, and the Pirates end up losing 6-5 in extra innings. I thought base running was a little bit questionable. I went up and caught a good part of the game. And it's another thing I want to mention is, I think Major League Baseball needs to do something about this opening day and when they do it. I mean, opening day was the end of March this year. I mean, it's just not baseball weather yet. It's not enjoyable for the fans. It's not enjoyable for the players. It's not good for the pitcher's arms. There's nothing good about it. Move it to when it's a little bit warmer. Get it to when people can enjoy it. I know you got to get 162 games in, but my goodness, I mean, to start it that early. Last year I think there were 3 inches of snow or something the day before the home opener in Pittsburgh. And this year, was in the temperature was in the low to mid 40s, and it turned out to be a sunny day and worked out okay. But I think Major League Baseball needs to do something about that. Let's turn to college basketball. Boy, if you had Auburn, Virginia, Texas Tech, and Michigan State as your Final Four, you might be the only one who did. A lot of surprise there, particularly with some of the, the traditional powers and Duke getting knocked out, of course, a big surprise. And I was reading, first time since 1985 that none of what they call the blue bloods of college basketball, the Dukes, the Carolinas, Kansas, Kentucky, UCLA's, all Indiana, all not a part of it this year. Of course, not great for ratings, but nice to see other teams in the mix. And so now Auburn and Virginia face off, and then Michigan State and Texas Tech. I'm gonna I had Duke winning it all before the tournament started. I'm gonna now go with Michigan State over Virginia in the championship for what it's worth. And part of the reason I'm gonna do that, Wheeling native Doug Wojcik on the Michigan State staff, one of Tom Izzo's assistant coaches. Would be great to see the Wheeling native get an NCAA championship ring. So good luck to Coach Wojcik, of course, Wheeling Central grad, and went on to the Naval Academy where he played with David Robinson, was the point guard when David Robinson was the center there, and a great combination that those two had there at the Naval Academy. But a longtime coach, and it'd be great to see him get a ring here this year. The women's Final Four, on the other hand, I hit that right on. 4 out of 4 in the Final Four picks. I gave you 2 number 1 seeds and 2 number 2 seeds a couple weeks back, and they all ended up making it to the Final Four. It'll be Notre Dame versus UConn in one semifinal. Of course, UConn not a number 1 seed this year for the first time in a long time, but still gets back to the Final Four like they do just about every year, at least for the last decade. And then Baylor versus Oregon on the other side, and Oregon a newcomer to this mix, but I did have them, and I'm going to stick with my pick that I made before the tournament started. I'm going to go with Notre Dame over Baylor in the championship. I think Notre Dame's backcourt just too good. Jackie Young, Enrique, I'm going to try to say her name. I should be able to say it. Mbumawale. I can't say it. But anyway, being a Notre Dame grad, I should be able to pronounce her name. But of course, she hit the 2 buzzer beaters in the Final Four last year in the semis to beat UConn, and then the championship game against Mississippi State to give Notre Dame the championship. And I said Notre Dame would defend that title. Just too much talent, on that team across the board. All 5 starters. The 5 starters have scored something like over 10,000 points in their career at Notre Dame. Just incredible, and at least a couple of players likely to be first-round WNBA draft picks. So I'll stick with that. If you don't watch women's basketball, watch this Final Four. You won't be disappointed to see the Final Four. And then on a kind of a local statewide note here, the West Virginia SSAC Board of Control voted this week overwhelmingly for a 2-year trial period of 4 classes in basketball, going from 3 classes to 4, where not just enrollment will be considered, but also things like socioeconomic factors, geographic location, things like that. So overwhelmingly passed by the Board of Control. Now the principals will have to vote on it and approve it as well for that 2-year trial period to take place. And a lot of controversy about that, a lot of discussion about whether it makes sense the way they're doing it, but it would be a 2-year trial period for basketball, not for all sports, to see how it goes. So keep an eye on that and see what happens, because that could affect some local teams. That's all the time we have this week. Thanks for tuning in. Appreciate you joining us. We'll see you again next time on The Jamie Bordas Show.